Why is J.D. Vance using the West Wing to violate the Hatch Act and do political podcasting in the name of Charlie Kirk during his day job as the Vice President of the United States? And why is Stephen Miller violating the Hatch Act again by being his first guest on his White House talk show as he takes over Turning Point, while at the same time, MAGA members of Congress take over the halls of Congress at time out of their allegedly helping America by holding a candlelight religious ceremony in Congress for Charlie Kirk? And why are enough people talking about it? I talk about it. We're going to talk about it on The Intersection, my podcast on Tuesday nights on Legal AF. And here is a clip. And then you have Pam Bondi, who says out loud that she's definitely going to use the power of the Department of Justice to go after hate speech, to which even Fox News anchors had to remind her and do a double take and say that's First Amendment protected speech, even if it makes you uncomfortable. That's the point. Charlie Kirk said almost everything that came out of his mouth made me repulsed me, made me angry, disgusted me, violated my morals and my principles, and made me, putting it mildly, uncomfortable. But as I said, and I've said before, I will defend with my breath, my last breath, the right for him to have said that out loud and make me uncomfortable. We win these battles in the soapbox on the soapbox, right? In the marketplace of ideas, in the public square, in the electronic public square, in social media, for the hearts and minds that we're battling for, the hearts and minds of the American people. At bottom, we are all Americans and patriots. That should never be denied or prosecuted or lead to your arrest just because you're on a different political aisle than somebody else. So in response to Pam Bondi saying she's going to use the powers of the Department of Justice to target people, here's what Justice Sotomayor had to say. See if you can figure out who she's talking about. Let's play the clip.
And the thing that gets to me is every time I listen to a lawyer-trained representative saying we should criminalize free speech in some way, I think to myself, that law school failed. All right? If any student who becomes a lawyer hasn't been taught civics, then the law school has failed. It should be as critically a part of the curricula as your first year courses.
What did we just watch in the last 24 hours? The Vice President of the United States, used the White House and the West Wing to conduct a political rally masquerading as a podcast to sit in the chair of the late Charlie Kirk from the White House on my taxpayer dime in order to rail against liberals and Democrats who he says is the root cause of this murder, while he's the Vice President of the United States. May I remind J.D. Vance, just for a moment, that a guy who looked an awful lot like you before he was running for office, I think he was even beardless, said that Donald Trump was America's Hitler and that he would never vote for Donald Trump if his life depended on it. And then, of course, he had to defend those. Here's a clip of, just so you can remember, J.D. Vance calling Donald Trump America's Hitler, which is sort of a little bit of irony, considering Donald Trump from the White House said that one of the reasons Charlie Kirk is dead is because the left compares him and others to Hitler. Here's J.D. Vance's clip from our Wayback Machine.
This is an evolution, and I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things.
And then he has the brass ones to sit in violation of the Hatch Act, by the way, against politicking and electioneering while you're on the public dole. And so you have the Bondi, J.D. Vance, and who's J.D. Vance? One of his first guests, right? Direct from the crypt is the Grim Reaper, Stephen Miller, who comes on because he's a perfect presentation of all that's wrong with MAGA, right? He checks all the boxes. They're just all the wrong boxes. And then he goes after America from the bully pulpit. There's one thing to call it the bully pulpit. There's another thing to transmit a podcast and conduct a podcast from the West Wing, from the White House. And he comes on and starts attacking me and you and everybody that's interested in the Midas Touch Network or Legal AF or anything like that. Welcome back. I don't know if this is the turning point or a hinge moment, but we certainly have a before Kirk murder and after Kirk murder moment in our political history. And who we are as Americans are going to be defined by what we do next. I'm glad you're here. Intersection, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Growing audience. We have over 350,000 that are watching the show from last night, from Tuesday night. And I'm glad that you now know about it. Pick us up on the podcast platforms of your choice, Spotify, Apple. Watch us on YouTube. We cracked the top 100 of all YouTube podcasts, The Intersection, because of you. And until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.